The FIA found itself in yet another controversial situation after overturning the 10-second penalty that Sainz received in Zandvoort, deleting the 2 points that he got on his super license. However, while many feel that justice has been served, there are a lot of arguments that have been made about this decision of the FIA, with the primary one being the consistency of their penalty system, as well as the new evidence that was lacking in order for them to overturn the penalty. Be that as it may, are the FIA making up rules as they go? And more importantly, what other drivers have been hurt in this partially selective process of the governing body? Even though it was more than 2 weeks ago, Zandvoort is still keeping us entertained. This time it was thanks to Williams' right of review regarding Carlos Sainz's penalty for the incident with Liam Lawson. The FIA's original case meant that the Spaniard broke the codex of racing and didn't have the right to the corner because his car was not ahead of Liam's. However, it's not like Sainz tried to overtake hard. He merely kept his car on par with Lawson's. Both of their races were ruined by this accident as they were running in the points. So, a proper penalty was absolutely a must. And while the FIA were 100% sure in their principles and stood by their rulebook, that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. The fact that Sainz called the penalty ridiculous and a joke to the sport provoked Williams to call upon their right to review it. And this is where things get interesting. The governing body decided to overturn Sainz's penalty, deleting the 2 super license points from his portfolio, but not deleting the 10-second penalty that he received on the track. This itself is a bit controversial, to say the least, but it doesn't end here. Now, I think you'd completely agree with me if I said that this is a complete change in the narrative of the stewards. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just completely different from what they were saying a couple of weeks ago. Back then, they were sticking to the rules and stated that no part of Sainz's car was ahead of Lawson's, and the fact that he wasn't on the inside of the corner meant that he had no right to try any type of overtaking maneuver. Now, they're saying that car number 30 lost control of the track, which I do believe is something they could have seen from the initial footage. No new evidence was provided to the FIA in order for them to change their mind. And just accepting Williams's point of view is kind of admitting that they were wrong in the first place. And this is where the phone drivers and the fans have a problem with the FIA, the inconsistency. Some will say at least they have the guts to admit that they were wrong and rescinded the penalty, and they would probably be right. However, the steward's job is not to dish out penalties as fast as they can, and then review it for 2 weeks before they can see where they've gone wrong. As the rule book states loud and clear, if new evidence is not provided, they cannot change the initial penalty, whether they were right or wrong. This verdict makes it look like the FIA is creating its own rules as they go, which is definitely not a good look for the sport. What is also worth noting is that Sainz served his 10-second penalty during the race, and what that meant is that the FIA forced Sainz into a ruined race, just for them to go on and say that their verdict was wrong. Yes, even before the penalty, it was highly unlikely that Sainz would have raced for the points. But being a sitting duck for 10 seconds in the pit stop is just too much, especially considering that the pit stop took longer because of the damaged car. Needless to say, Williams is both grateful and mad about this decision. Elaborating further on the new verdict from the FIA, the Grove-based squad said in a statement, "We are grateful to the stewards for reviewing Carlos's Zandvoort penalty, and are pleased they have now decided he was not at fault and that this was a racing incident. While it is frustrating that our race was compromised by the original decision, mistakes are part of motor racing, and we will continue to work constructively with the FIA to improve stewarding processes and review the racing rules for the future." This is what I mean when I say that taking back your original verdict without any new evidence being presented to you is just blatantly admitting that you were wrong in the first place, but it took you a while to admit it. Sainz served his penalty. His race was already ruined, and 2 weeks later, you go on to say that you now agree with his team's verdict of the entire crash. Furthermore, there are a couple of other incidents that happened during Zandvoort that deserve to be looked at properly. Lewis Hamilton's 5-place grid penalty for Monza is one of them. The 7-time world champion did lift off the gas pedal as soon as he saw the yellow flags, but the stewards decided that the slowdown was not enough to be considered in the category of significant as the double yellow required. Who knows, if Ferrari had jumped on board with Williams and put pressure on the stewards, maybe they would have seen Hamilton's penalty being reversed. Let's not forget about Ollie Bearman as well. During the Monza GP, he and Sainz engaged in a crash that many fans felt was nothing more than a racing incident. Nevertheless, the stewards had a firm belief that the Haas driver was the one primarily at fault, which is why they penalised him the same as Sainz in Zandvoort, a 10-second penalty and 2 points on his super license. This is a bit harsher to take for Ollie because he is now 2 points away from a race ban.